Hi guys, Aceface back with another video for Twisted Dice. Today I've got some more Tyranid content for you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look in a little bit of detail at 3 competitive lists that have recently been at events. Obviously events are few and far between, but we're going to look at them. We're going to delve down and find out what worked really well for them, what things you can take for your lists, whether these are lists that you want to copy and paste, and what I really like about them. So hopefully this will be interesting for you guys. Just my opinion, I don't know everything, and there may be some reasons, so don't take it to heart if you run these lists. But we're going to break them down and hopefully give you guys some help. So it's kind of the next stage in your evolution to learning more about Tyranids, so hopefully this will be useful for you. If you are enjoying the Tyranid videos at the moment and you're enjoying generally the content from Twisted Dice, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you put those notifications on and hit that big old like button. It helps us out tons as we very fast approach our 10,000 subscribers and a huge giveaway. So loads coming up for you guys. Not one to be missed. Let me just move my chair away from the banner in the back because it's making a lot of noise. So let's dive into this video. So what I've done is I've gone into BCP. So I'm not going to put these lists up, but because I want to support BCP, they're a great guys that do a fantastic job. So if you want to see these lists and you want to delve into detail on them, then become a subscriber to BCP and you can have a look at these lists. If not, just pause the video as I go through them, and you should be able to get a pretty good idea. So these aren't all the lists, the Tyranid lists for the last few months, but they are, I've taken from sort of January, from when we got the FAQ. And I've looked at lists that have performed really well. We've got 2 that went undefeated at fairly small events, and we've got 1 that did very well at quite a big event. And I picked them out because I think they're interesting. Caveat, these are not lists with Genestealer Cult in. You may well find that actually putting some Genestealer Cult into your lists can make them even more competitive. It's not a route I like to go in, and it's not a route I'm really expertise in as well. So I've stuck to Tyranid only lists. I think there's tons of play in Tyranid only lists. I don't think you need Genestealer Cult at the moment, but just to put that out there. So if you're screaming and you're going, well, I know X, Y, and Z do really well with this Tyranid list. If it had Genestealer Cult on it, I've not really looked at it, so that's why it is. And again, apologies, I'm not going to name out the people that ran these lists. Again, all the details are on there, but well done for doing so well, guys. So I'm going to start off with a list that came out of a tournament called Warphammer. It's a European event, and a really pretty interesting list, very interesting, and I was a bit shocked when I first read it, but I'm going to talk it through with you because it makes loads of sense. So rather than go for a Hive fleet, one of the known Hive fleets, this gentleman has decided to go for a create your own Hive fleet, which is one of the first times I've seen this. So this is quite new to me, but very interesting. And in this particular list, I can see how it can work really well. So one to consider when you're planning your lists. So he's gone for metamorphic regrowth and prey site. So what these 2 do is they are both monster related biomorphs or advantages to your monsters within your lists. So what they'll do is, 1, when you are charged, or when you do a heroic intervention, you get +1 to hit on your monsters. That's very strong. So if you're running a lot of monsters, and potentially ones that are maybe hitting on a 3+, to then suddenly make them hit on a 2+, suddenly means those attacks are going to be super reliable. So that's very interesting. And when you look at his list, you can see where that comes into play. On top of that, the other advantage he has is the secondary biomorph means that he regains 1 wound on monsters each turn. So again, it's like a constant regeneration, which is great because it just gives you more wounds throughout the game. So that is an effective stack there. So he's very much going along the lines of, I'm going to build this around monsters. I'm going to make them very effective in combat. Particularly when I'm going on the aggressiveness, but also I'm going to make them a little bit more resilient as well with that regaining 1 wound. So I really like that. So his list, he's gone for a battalion, and he has gone for a Neurothrope. The Neurothrope's got the Barb relic, which is a really good relic to take. It just means he's going to get his psychic powers off, super reliable. He's gone for the Swarm Lord. The Swarm Lord in this list is really important, and we'll cover that a little bit later. He's then gone for a very interesting troop choice, and this is the one that maybe I'll start to pick the list about a little bit. He's gone for a unit of 10 Hormone Gaunts, 2 units of 3 Rippers. So Rippers, yes, I get. The Hormone Gaunts, my issue with is just a unit of 10 Hormone Gaunts doesn't really do anything. It doesn't provide you with a particularly aggressiveness there, because 10 Hormone Gaunts is not scary. It's not particularly going to hold an objective very well, and it's more expensive than Termagants. I just don't understand why you would go for Hormone Gaunts in this thing. Yes, obviously when they charge, they're going to be better in combat, but 10 Hormone Gaunts, even hitting with a +1, is not going to do anything. So I don't understand the Hormone Gaunts in this list. The Rippers I like. I would definitely, if I was running it, I would 100% change that for Termagants. There's just no point in spending these extra points in my mind. Or otherwise, you need to beef those Hormone Gaunts out and make them more of a useful unit. He's then gone into his elites, and we've got 2 Lictors, great choices. Again, these play the objectives so well, so they're fantastic at that. And then he's gone for 3 Venomthropes. Interesting with the Venomthropes, choosing to go for Venomthropes over a Malanthrope. Yes, it's cheaper. He's saving himself some points there, but obviously Malanthrope, the Venomthrope's much easier to kill. So interesting choice there, but I can still see the viability, making sure that he's got that -1, because that's going to be handy as we go on. Then in fast attack, this is where it gets really quite spicy. He's gone for not 1, not 2, but 3 Diracarons. So obviously these guys are the new hotness within in the Tyranid kind of collection, I suppose. And these hit like an absolute truck anyway. But obviously he's stacking that with the fact that he's going to regenerate. He's stacking it as well with the fact that when these hit, they're going to be +1. So they're going to be hitting on 2s, re-rolling all their hits as well. That's a scary proposition. He's got the Swarm Lord to make sure that one of them is almost certainly going to make combat first turn. And because he's got 3, it's very, very difficult for our opponent to be able to kill all of those quick enough before they start making themselves really count. So it's very much going along the same lines that we're seeing quite a lot from Slanesh lists, which is just, you know, target saturation, getting across the board really, really quickly. And those Diracarons hit like an absolute ton of bricks. It doesn't stop there. He's then got heavy support. He's gone for an Exocrine. Obviously Exocrine is a great choice. I'm not 100% sure that in this list an Exocrine is a better choice over Hive Guard. I'm just not sure where that fits in particularly. I would rather go for Hive Guard that are easier to hide, and, you know, will probably provide just as much hit, if not more. But he's decided to go for an Exocrine. Obviously that Exocrine is going to benefit from the fact that if he does attack, he's better in combat and he's going to regenerate health. So he's going along that monster mindset, but obviously if the Exocrine's getting shot at, there's probably something gone wrong anyway. So I'm not sure about that, but Exocrine is still always a good unit. He's then finishing off the list with not 1, but 2 Hive Tyrant. So again, you can see where this is going. This is ultra offensive. Fly across the board as quickly as you possibly can and cause mass chaos in combat with super reliable, super hard hitting combat. So he has basically 5 ridiculously aggressive units that are going to go straight through the middle of the board, and they're going to try and kill as much as they can and just completely, you know, just take all the pressure off the rest of his army, while he's then got the Swarm Lord, who can also do similar himself, but he's going to stay behind, provide that psychic support, provide, you know, that ability to spring shot units, you know, across the board. He can also sit on an objective if he needs to himself while he's doing that, and you know, while his lictors kind of do some of the secondary work, they can also hold objectives themselves hidden, and his Venomthropes are also, you know, going up the board, taking objectives. So the list is a very, very clever list, and it's no surprise that it did really well. What it lacks, and I will try and put some links down below if I can remember, but they're not too difficult to find if I forget. When you look at this from a cap strategy, and I always talk about the cap strategy because that is what I think is the best way to play Tyranids, which is all around controlling, you know, it's around aggravating, and it's around power. So these are the types of units. Now what he's got is he's got huge volumes of both power and aggravate, because a lot of his units are almost doing both. What he lacks a little bit is a little bit of control, because he doesn't really have anything troops wise that's going to hold the middle, and he doesn't really have anything that's particularly resilient to be able to hold the middle or to be able to hold objectives. He's very much depending on the fact that his offensive ability is so strong that you just can't cope with it, and it literally will overload your defenses and it will just rush through, which in a lot of cases with this sheer volume of strength within the list is just going to outpower people, and people will not be able to deal with it unless you've got the tools to deal with this. It's just going to completely steamroller you. But that's where it potentially could come unstuck. If someone goes first, they've got resiliency and they can hold on with troops or things that are going to score, or just mass bodies, you know, resiliency. If they can get to the middle first, and this stampede of big bugs can't take them off there quick enough, they could find they come unstuck because they don't have really enough kind of bugs to do that job. So that's where it potentially could come unstuck. So if I'm being heavily critical, that's where I see the stumbling point, and where it could come unstuck against some really good players and really good lists. But this is strong, guys. This is super strong. I can see how this could be tons of fun to play and could be incredibly powerful. So I really like it, and one that if you have those miniatures, try it out. I believe this might have even been ran on Tabletop Simulator, so obviously give that a go as well. But looks fun, looks really, really fun. So I'll move on to the next list. So the next list, a little bit more conventional. I say that, but it's still very, very strong. So we've got a Battalion Detachment, gone for a Kronos Battalion. And in this, we've gone for 2 units of Hive Tyrants. Now these Hive Tyrants, now I've looked at them, I've looked at the points. They have not got wings, which is interesting because I'm a big advocate of Hive Tyrants without wings. I think they're just really good value for money without wings. But these loadouts are interesting. So he's got 2 Hive Tyrants. These Hive Tyrants have both got 2 sets of Devourers. So loads of shots. And obviously these are Kronos. If they stand still, they're hitting on 3s, reload 1s, which is not bad, but it's still just mass shots. So I don't know whether his meta has a lot of infantry, a lot of little guys, a lot of swarm, because for me, you know, yes, that is like 48 shots between the 2 of them, strength 6, hitting really effectively, but for me, it's just AP dash, doesn't do a lot of damage, doesn't have a lot of range. These guys aren't necessarily super quick, so I thought that's interesting. I think having venom cannons and rending claws is a much better way to go with your tyrants, personally, but I still think it's good. It's interesting. So interesting how they played out. He's then got a Neurothrope, so that's cool. Obviously the Neurothrope is going to be the one that's going to cast the very, very cool Kronos power. In troops choices, then we've gone for Hormone Gaunts again. I'm seeing Hormone Gaunts come through a little bit, which is very interesting because personally I still struggle to rate the guys. But we've got 2 units of 10 Hormone Gaunts with Scything Talons. I don't know why they wouldn't be termagants, but they're not. They're Hormone Gaunts. He's then gone for 2 units of Rippers. Great choice. And then a unit of 10 termagants and a unit of 15 termagants. All with the flesh borers, which is super cool. So lots of troop choices. So he's got a lot more ability to hold objectives there. They're small units, so they're not super resilient, but he's got quite a few of them, and he has enough to potentially take the pressure off them. Then into elite slot, we've got 5 Hive Guard with the Impaler cannons. Super strong unit, of course. Then we've got a Lictor. I just think you're always going to take a Lictor these days as a Tyranid player. They're just so good at taking the secondary objectives. Then in fast attack, we've got 1 single Demicheron. And then we've got in heavy support, we've got a Barb Tyranid, we've got an Exocrine, and we've got a Hive Tyrant, which is just really cool. So, you know, there's bits in there that maybe lack some synergy. So what we've got here is we've got a Demicheron with no way of reliably getting him across the board, particularly because he doesn't have a Swarm Lord to double move him, and he's not Kraken to make him super quick. So he doesn't really have a way of reliably getting the Demicheron in combat turn 1. So he might find that Demicheron comes under a lot of fire early, potentially. Then we've gone for very interesting having the Hive Tyrant, because again, the Hive Tyrant definitely not as strong as the Barb Tyrant, and you know, lacks the ability to again get in as quickly as he would in some other lists. So we've got, you know, you've got the Demicheron and we've got the Hive Tyrant that are going to try and get across the board as quickly as they possibly can, because they're playing very much that distraction role, then allowing the Barb Tyrant and the Exocrine and the Hive Guard to play that power role and to really lay down the hurt, while his control units, the Hive Tyrants, the termagants, the units that are in the middle of the board taking the objectives, can play that control role. So this fits in to the cap strategy much better than the earlier list, but it maybe lacks some synergy with build to really allow some of these units to fully utilize their power. So he's gone for the Kronos ability as his main power element to allow those Hive Guard, to allow the Exocrine, you know, to allow the Barb Tyrant to really get their maximum power out of their weaponry. But then he's trying to synergize that with some combat ability to give him some distraction tactics to allow him to be able to push that part of the board, which is really smart play. But he lacks the tools to make them really effective, because you kind of have to make that sacrifice. That's why potentially in this list, the one thing that's missing is the Swarm Lord, so he can use that ability to maximize that strength within his list, because he's still got loads of combat ability, but probably lacks the ability to really utilize it as well as he possibly could. So that would be my kind of critique on it. But again, I really like it. It definitely it does the cap strategy well. It will, you know, it will do well, and it has done well. So great list, again, one to try. I like it because it has a bit of everything. Looks a lot of fun. Interesting how those Hive Tyrants worked for you. Really interesting way of taking them. So there we go. But that's that list. And then I'm going to go on to my last list now. So this list was the one that was at the biggest event. So this was against some serious competition. This was an Australian event. And, you know, this was a big 5 or 6 game event. So we're going to delve into this again and look at it. It's a very interesting list. Again, I think this follows the cap strategy really well. And again, it has some of those really cool, very meta, I hate using that word, very currently popular Tyranid units. So what we've got here is we've got 2 detachments, I believe. Let me just double check this. Yes, so we've got a battalion and a patrol. The battalion detachment is Leviathan, so straight away that's already in my mind going to, this is my control part of my army. This is the part of my army where I'm going to score my points and I'm going to try and hold objectives, because that's what Leviathan really has its strength in. So what we've got here is we've got the Broodlord. Broodlord is a great choice now, and we've got the Malanthrope. Malanthrope's still super reliable. Great having that -1, giving you that ability to keep your bugs that little bit more safe. So really like that. It's a good start. In Troops choice, we've now got a really strong core within this Troops choice. So we've got a unit of 20 Termagants. We've got 9 Devourers. So the first time we're seeing these Devourers come through, which is interesting. And then we've got 11 Flesh Borers. We've then got another unit of Termagants, again 20 man, 10 Devourers, 10 Flesh Borers. So, you know, we've actually got a lot of shots coming out of those Devourers. We've got the ability to deal with some hordes. This is Australia. They do tend to like their hordes, so we've got a bit of horde clearing ability within those Devourers, which is interesting. Beefier units being 20 man as well. So what we've seen previously, smaller men unit that tend to fall away a little bit. The bigger, juicier unit here, much more sticking power, particularly with that Malanthrope knocking around, making them a little bit more resilient. We've then got 3 big juicy units of Tyranid warriors, but what he's gone for is he's gone for very much utilising the points drops, keeping these guys as cheap and cheerful as he possibly can. They are Scything Talons, so no guns, just all Scything Talons. So that's really interesting. So these guys are pretty good in combat, but they don't hit super hard. But what you've got there is you've just got lots of ablative wounds. So you've got fearless models that can kind of get to the middle of the board. They can, you know, they're quite resilient, can be. You've got stratagems to make them even more resilient. They're just not going to go anywhere until you kill them to a man. So they're cheap units, which, you know, can really kind of like hold objectives, really provide that job well, which I really like. We've then got in elites, we've got a Lictor, as I said, don't leave home without it. We've got a Maleceptor, which I've been playing around with. I really like. It's difficult to know whether it's quite points efficient enough, but a great way of making units more survivable. There's some shenanigans you can do with the Maleceptor, so I think he's good. It also gives you some more psychic ability. Then we have got we've got in heavy support, we've got a Barb Tyrajil. Obviously, we've spoken about Barb Tyrajil in the past. It's just a great unit, super reliable, packs a punch. He's got the 5+ invulnerable save on him, so great. We've then got a Tyrannofex. He's going to have the acid spray. He's also going to have a 5+ invuln save, so he's doubling up that, which is great. And the Tyrannofex now coming down in points makes him even more viable, and he's a really good unit. We've then got the Kronos Detachment. So this is the patrol. We've got a Neurophrope, always going to take the Neurophrope in that role. This is just kind of like bread and butter. He's obviously going to take the Kronos power as well. We've then got a unit of Rippers, because he's got to, and they're great for jumping in, taking objective. In elites, we've got, funny enough, Hive Guard. They are like given. You take a Kronos Detachment, you kind of always want to take Hive Guard. 5 of those. We've then got 2 Exocrines, which I like. Oh, 2 Exocrines, sorry, 1 Exocrine. And then we've got a unit of 3 Biovores, which is interesting. Obviously, Biovores give you the ability to do some move blocking shenanigans. They also have quite a long range, which is great because you literally can't hide from them. So I like them. They're interesting, Biovores, and they're still kind of like that in-between unit. Where are they good or are they bad? Are they kind of in between? But very interesting seeing them in the list, particularly not just a single one to make up a brigade, but actually investing some points in them to have 3 of them. So what we've got here is we've got a really strong, hard-hitting little fire base within his list, and then that's then built around some fairly resilient, strong units within the rest of his army that are going to hang around and cause trouble. So look, I love this list. It definitely does the cap system well. We've got some strong, resilient units in the middle. We've got units that very much can kind of be, you know, aggravating units. You know, things like the Tyrannofex, you know, the Barb Tyrajil. You know, these are units that potentially can move forward, cause a bit of trouble. And we've got bags of power, and a good amount of control. If anything, aggravate is the area of this list that it kind of falls down in. We've got quite a lot of control. We haven't got, because it's lacking that it's lacking that Swarm Lord, it's lacking those Dimmercarons. It doesn't have very many units that are designed to really get in your opponent's face quick. He's kind of using Spore Mines a little bit for that. He's using, you know, he's got units that will do that. It doesn't have as many as some of the other lists that we've looked at. So if anything, that's probably the downfall of the list. It kind of, it gets quite close to the middle. It doesn't go much further than that, and then it puts in quite a lot of hurt there, but it doesn't really have necessarily those pressure units. So that's probably potentially where it could fall down, but I really like it. I love the putting in the dedication of a Kronos patrol to maximize that, while making sure that the other part of the list is all around that, controlling the middle of the board, taking the objectives, doing that role really, really well. So yeah, so a good list. So there you go, guys. We've gone for almost half an hour now. Hopefully you're not bored. I just thought we'd ramp it up a little bit today and talk a little bit more detail around what are potentially some really competitive Tyranid lists, ones that have done well already, so their proof is in the pudding, and how they kind of work on the battlefield, what to look for, what to avoid, and have fun, you know. So hopefully it's been useful. Please do put your comments down below, let me know what you think, and until the next video, I'm Aceface, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.